What's going on, golf addicts? It's DB and it's US Open breakdown and research time. In this video, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I am going to show you some things you need to know about the golf course, the country club at Brookline in Massachusetts. It's going to be a great event, great venue. I've done a lot of research, so you don't have to. This should be a one stop shop to help you just, I'm sifting through all the stuff. So you'll know everything you need to know before you start handicapping the golf tournament from a betting or DFS perspective. But I'm also going to give you a little peek into kind of how I go about doing some of this research before the tournament starts, some course fit stuff, and some tools on Fantasy National and other websites that I like to use. I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to share my screen. I'm even going to show you some of the stuff in the Nut Hut that will be critical to to having some green screens on DFS for DraftKings or bending over your bookie wherever you do place your golf wagers. All right, let's get right into it with some basics. All right, so first of all, let's take a look at the past champs and previous U.S. Open venues. Last year, your defending champ is going to be John Rahm, shot 6 under at Torrey. Bryson before that, 6 under at Wingfoot. Woodland at Pebble, 13 under. Brooks back to back years, plus one at Shinnecock. That place played tough. And then 16 under at Aaron Hills, kind of an outlier there. Then in 2016, DJ finished 5 under at Oakmont. Jordan Spieth barely beat out DJ at 5 under at Chambers Bay, and Martin Keimer 9 under at Pinehurst. Obviously, you'll notice that scoring for the most part is in that 5 to 6 under, maybe somewhere in there. I'd be shocked if this place gets, is gotten by better than 6 under. I feel like it's going to be closer to that 3 under to 5 under range. That's, I think, where the U.S. Open's going to want it to play. So let's talk about some features of the golf course, the Country Club at Brookline. So the Country Club at Brookline is a par 70. It's going to be tipped out around 7,263 yards. That obviously means that it's not always going to play to that yardage. It will likely play shorter, plenty of days. They'll set it up differently, use different tee boxes based on weather, scoring, all that kind of stuff. You got two par fives on the golf course, four difficult par threes. It's going to be a difficult USGA test. They are going to graduate the rough from the fairways. You're going to have your typical US Open thick, nasty rough, unlike what we saw at Southern Hills, where we had a lot of short grass, a lot of closely mown areas. We're not going to have as much of that. There's plenty of fescue and native areas that surround the fairways and the greens here at Brookline. What's cool is like there's a lot of uneven lies. The terrain is very rolling. There's a lot of dog legs. They have these mounds or chocolate drops is another name for them. We'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second. They present some level of unpredictability. They remind me of a little bit of the mounding that like Pete Dye does around TPC Sawgrass, except I think these have like rocks underneath them. Not that you're going to be hitting off of rocks, but it's a very interesting design element, and it's going to make for some very unpredictable lies around the rough if you find yourself on those. Gil Hanse did do a redesign. This is an old golf course, but Gil Hanse redesigned it. Gil Hanse also redesigned Southern Hills, which we just saw. He took out a lot of trees, he lengthened some holes, and he did make some subtle changes to the greens to allow for more pin positions. And let's take a look at some other things. So it did host the 2013 U.S. Amateur, which was won by Matthew Fitzpatrick. Xander Schauffele, Scotty Scheffler, Corey Connors, and Bryson all competed and had pretty decent showings. There are other guys that are in this field that competed and missed the cut or didn't make it to the match play segment, but those five guys obviously played this place well. Not that that really means a whole lot, but just letting you know, it's Brookline has also, or sorry, the Country Club has also hosted I think three other U.S. Opens. I think they've hosted a Women's Open. It's got a great track record with the USGA. A couple of key quotes that Gil Hanse said. He said, "These are tiny, tilty greens. They're the second smallest greens aside from Pebble Beach in terms of square footage. I think they're around 4,500 square feet." He also said that Bryson's plan at Winged Foot will not work here. He specifically called out Bryson and what he did when he just hit it wherever. Didn't care whether he ended up in the rough or not. He hit it wherever, and he just dominated Winged Foot. Finished 6 under, but I think the next closest score to him was like even or 1 under maybe. So Gill doesn't think that's going to work. He says the rough is thicker, and then the fescue and native areas, if you blow it too far off track, are just they're just too difficult. So you're going to get unpredictability around here. You're going to get these tiny greens. That's definitely going to be, going to be factors here at the Country Club. So just other thoughts off on the course. I want to start off the tee. Um, I think major championships and especially the USGA. Oh, phone call. I think major championships and especially the USGA, they it sets up for bombers. It sets up for distance. It sets up for length. Pebble Beach was probably the outlier. I think we saw the lowest average driving distance of any course played on the PGA Tour or in majors in since 2015 at Pebble Beach. I think the average off the tee was like 270 yards. For that reason, I'm probably leaving some of the Pebble Beach U.S. Open performance outside, out of any models or any stats I look at. I'll show you that in just a second on Fantasy National. Winged Foot, Torrey Pines had the two lowest driving accuracy percentage numbers on tour since 2015. So both last year when John Rahm won and when Bryson won at Winged Foot, uh, driving accuracy was not, I mean, it was sub 50% on average for that week. Traditional US Open rough, like I said, they're going to graduate it. That's off the tee. When it comes to approach play here, your approach is going to depend on whether you're in the fairway and you can control your spin into these tiny greens. Obviously, we're going to hear a lot of players talk about that, and obviously being tilted and these greens that slope. And if you're playing from the rough, it's a lot harder to spin the ball and control your ball. And these are, being such small targets. I do feel like the the being in the fairway is going to be critical, but you're still going to need some distance, man. We're going to need total drivers of the golf ball here. The rough is going to be somewhat a game of chance, I think. Unfortunately, that's kind of the U.S. Open does that with their rough. You can get a good lie, you can get a terrible lie. You can get a lie that you can control, or you can get some club face on and have some spin, and then you get lies that maybe you're just off the fairway and you just barely miss it a little bit, and you're in the rough, and it's absolutely terrible. It's just it is what it is. It's kind of part of the USGA setup. And I do think there's going to be some holes where players are going to rip driver and just disregard the rough. But obviously, we'll see when we get there. We'll hear more as players do their press conferences, things like that. But if you're in the fairway, you can definitely, you can control spin, but you are likely to find an uneven lie as well. Similar to Augusta National, there's not a lot of flat lies here, a lot of rolling terrain. It is what it is. Around the green is going to be different than what we saw at Southern Hills. Like I said, you're going to have the U.S. Open rough. You got some gnarly bunkers for sure, which Southern Hills definitely had. You had some players complaining about Southern Hills bunker sand, but plenty of bunkers here to get yourself in trouble. But the rough is just going to be longer. It's going to be a lot more chopping it out. It's going to feature that typical U.S. Open rough. You're going to chop it out, and the ball's going to roll and run out. It's not like nipping it off the short grass or having the short grass repel it, 30 yards down the fairway away from the green just because you spun it back too much or something like that. Um, and players are going to be destined to miss a lot more greens, obviously, given the small size of the putting surfaces. And these chocolate drops are going to be cool. Like I said, I'm interested to see how some of these lies go with these guys. You're going to have to be really good. The greens are bent grass greens, averaging about 4,500 square feet. Like I said, they're small. Gil Hanse, tiny and tilted. They're probably going to be firm and they're going to be fast. And they are going to repel bad shots, but at times I think they're going to repel good shots. It all depends on the weather conditions. So just be on notice that the US Open does present a lot of variance and randomness at times, even though I do think the best players tend to rise to the top. Everybody's going to get some tough breaks out there, and it's just how it goes when you have courses set up the way that these are. It's just how it's going to happen. All right. Before we move on, I want to get to I want to show you guys a little bit some of the resources that I looked at to find some of this information, direct you to that. And then I want to share my screen and open up the Fantasy National. I want to open up Data Golf and show you some things that I look at there and kind of how I walk through starting to kind of, figure out the course fit, figure out who I've got my eye on, things I look at throughout the week. Before I do that, I do want to share one quick announcement with you with this video. Check it out. Mountain Valley in Pennsylvania, Pottsville, Pennsylvania, the site of the Golby's Cup, as well as the support group Saturday Scramble. This is the 18th hole of the mountain course. It's going to be a great day. Listen, you've probably played in plenty of scrambles, but have you ever played in a scramble where the scoring is based off DraftKings golf scoring? No? Well, you will if you come here, okay? It's just $200 for the Saturday Scramble event. Your ticket includes your golf, your lunch, your dinner, all your beer, all your wine, all your signature Tour Junkies cocktails, and a massive party on Saturday night with a few surprises as well. This will be a tournament you will never forget, I promise. So get here in September at Mountain Valley for the support group Saturday Scramble with the Tour Junkies. The support group Saturday Scramble is a must. It's in September. We've already got about 60 to 65 people signed up for it. We can have up to 150 if we want. I'd love to have 100. Make it out there. It's going to be fantastic. This will be Very, very memorable, I promise you. We don't have any dress code rules. You can play shirtless if you want. The golf course is letting us do whatever we want. You can camp out on the driving range and stay the night if you want. There's a lot of activities going on. We're gonna have a big party Saturday night. You can bring an RV and stay for free in the parking lot, or we have a hotel 3 miles away with rooms blocked off at a discounted rate. The details are in this description. Let's continue. All right, what's also in this description is the links to everything I'm going to show you or talk about in terms of where I started, how I started my research. And the first place I started was honestly the same place I started with Southern Hills, the Fried Eggs YouTube channel. The Fried Egg has done a great job. Andy Johnson, those guys, they're big time architecture geeks, and I love that. And I don't geek out about architecture. It bogs me down from other stuff that I get more interested in. But it's obviously a great starting point to help you figure out what kind of course is this going to be and how's it going to play and who's it set up for. You got to figure out course fit, right? And for the most part, course fit for major championships, it is what it is every single time. It's going to tend to lean towards bombers. It's going to make you play well in all facets of the game. You're going to have some short game because you're going to miss greens. It is, we kind of already know what it is, right? But the Fried Eggs YouTube video, they interviewed Gil Hance. That's where I got the quotes from. I've got a description or a link to that video in the description below. It's a great video to check out. They also did a podcast with it as well. And it was a little more in depth if you want that. I think the YouTube video is only a few minutes. There's also a Golf Digest article from Brookline, and normally I hate Golf Digest articles; they're usually terrible. But they had a pretty good write up there as well, where they kind of break down Brookline piece by piece, off the tee, around the greens, on the greens, that kind of thing. And that added some color to some of my early research as well. There's a link here in the description. Obviously, the USGA site is going to be helpful. The USGA app is going to be helpful, hopefully, the week of. Something I do is I watch all the press conferences. I read all the transcripts. If you're in the Nut Hut, I'll show you this in a second. I screenshot the parts of the transcript that I think are really telling about either how a player's feeling or what a player thinks about the golf course. And I kind of sift through all that for you and put that in the Nut Hut so you don't have to. I think player quotes and press conferences, a lot of it is sometimes bull, and a lot of it they say the same things over and over again, and you never know whether to believe it or not. But a lot of times you also get some real things in there that can affect how you handicap the golf tournament. And obviously, Tour Junkies blog, emails that we send out, podcasts, the Nut Hut, those are also other amazing resources. All of these resources, I've got links in the description here, and you can check it out. So, moving on, I want to share my screen and show you some early things I like to look at. And let's start with Fantasy National. You can go on Fantasy National, and it normally defaults to all courses, which is right here. But you can actually add or just have it pull from certain courses by pressing down and holding command if you're on a Mac. I don't know what you do if you're on a PC. And so you can just look at these courses that I have here in the gray. And I've selected, USGA, US Open venues, and PGA Championship venues that I think align with what we're going to see here at the Country Club. I didn't put like TPC Harding Park or Whistling Straits in here because I don't think those courses are going to play like what we're going to see at the Country Club. But I've got like Wingfoot, Torrey Pines, Southern Hills, Shinnecock, Pebble Beach at the US Open. Even though I don't love the comparison to Pebble, but the tiny greens and the around the green play at Pebble, somewhat similar to what we're going to see here at Country Club. Oakmont, Kiowa's Ocean Course, Erin Hills, and Chambers Bay. So that's here on Fantasy National. So it's basically going to pull, and I put 50 rounds here because that'll cover us all the way back to Chambers Bay. I've got 50 rounds here total, and you can sort that, and then you can sort all these stats based off of just performance here at these golf courses. Now, obviously, if a player didn't play in any of those events like these guys, they're not going to have any record. But I think this is interesting to look at. And I think primarily, like, here's a strokes gained total metric, which I don't really weigh into a lot, but it does kind of make sense, right? Like Brooks Koepka being the number one in strokes gained total on these hard golf courses, major championship venues makes a lot of sense. Louis, Rory, it makes a lot of sense. But I'm also going to look at like strokes gained tee to green. That's going to tell me, off the tee, approach, and around the green play, who does the best in tough major championship situations. I didn't include a lot of open championship. I didn't include any open championship courses here just because the open tends to be highly variable in terms of weather waves and draws and all that stuff, which can make things kind of messy here with what I'm looking at. And I didn't include the Masters because it's just its own beast, right? So, tee to green, ball striking and around the green play, here's who's popping. Ball striking is another one I like to look at, and that's, this is just off the tee play and approach. What this is doing is it's kind of giving me a sense of course history, even though we don't have course history because it's the Country Club. We haven't played here since 2010. So it's giving me that course history vibe or that major championship record major championship performance that starts to show me guys I want to have my eye out for, right? Now, I also think where this is really helpful, because if you look at it up top, it's like, well, these are all the studs. This makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I get it. But what I really like to do is like, if you take strokes gained tee to green and you go all the way to the bottom, it kind of shows you guys who really suck in major championships. For example, Kevin Na, who's a guy who wins on the PGA Tour almost annually, but he doesn't do well in major championships. At least in the USGA or the US Open and the PGA championships that I have pulled up here, he's all the way down here at the bottom with 24 rounds logged. It's not like a Bo Hostler with 8 rounds, like a very small sample size. It's a big sample size. He's 98 in ball striking or 92nd in tee to green. Like it's really bad. As you keep scrolling, you get Troy Merritt, Kevin Kisner, 28 rounds on courses like this, and the tee to green numbers not good. Jason Kokrak, 22 rounds, tee to green numbers not good. So sometimes I think it can help you. Cameron Tringali, 14, Leishman, 34, and look at his tee to green play. Now he obviously makes up for a lot of things on the putting surfaces as he's 31st here in this field. So, I mean, you can definitely look around and kind of scroll through here, and it gives you a sense early in the week before you really start deep diving into models and stuff, like where your course history value really is. I also think it's worth looking at percentage of rounds gained. Like we're looking at rank here, a percentage of rounds gained is also a factor that I like to look at. I mean, um, at a larger sample size here, Rory is kind of a stud. I mean, 86.4% of the time he's gaining strokes on the field in tee to green play. Zalatoris obviously has started out pretty hot with only 16 rounds. Davis Riley's started out pretty good there too. So I think this screen is very interesting, and it's something I like to do on Fantasy National. All right. So before we move on, I'm going to show you more about Fantasy National, other things I like to look at, something called the rolling report, which I think is often overlooked when it comes to people handicapping this thing. I think it's very, very important. While I'm here, drop me a comment. We're early on. I know it's early in the US Open week, but give me a comment on who your sleeper is. Who's a favorite sleeper for you, either in the betting world, the DFS world? Put the name in there. We're going to pick one that plays well, that performs well. We're going to send you a special prize pack from the Tour Junkies. So drop that in the comment. It helps us out. Click the like button and subscribe here to the YouTube channel if you don't already. That also helps us out. And share the video. Copy the link and share it with a friend. Share it with a buddy, a family member that loves golf. There's a lot of new people that, because it's a major championship, they'll dive into some Tour Junkies content and or they'll dive into just betting and DFS content because they're going to roll out a DraftKings lineup, but they don't know where to go. Help them out. Send them to us. It would be very nice of you to do that, and we'd be very much appreciative. All right, let's share our screen with some more Fantasy National goodies that I like here. I want to talk about this rolling report feature. This is something I don't think enough people look at. So now I'm back to all courses here, and I'm just looking. The rolling report gives you a view of kind of a linear view of a timeline, if you will, of how a player has done in a particular skill set. And so this is strokes gained around the green. I think this is worth looking at because at a major championship, especially a difficult one, it's a very important stat. And so right off at the top, I'm sorting by salary here on DraftKings, but you can see like Scotty Scheffler has been a really good scrambler for a long time. Okay. Like he's been a good scrambler since his career kind of really started here on the PGA Tour. But as you keep scrolling, like obviously the more green you see, the better this player is, both in a short term and a long term. A mistake that a lot of handicappers can make is they put too much value on the short term recent form stats and not enough value in long term. Like, what is the true DNA of this player? Yes, players can evolve and they can change, and their skills can deteriorate in some ways and get better in some ways as they progress. But what is the general overall DNA of this player? And that's important still. Like look at Patrick Cantlay is a good example. If you did like a 12 round snapshot, like who's really hot scrambling right now, he's not going to check out very well. But honestly, like in the long term, in the long haul, Patrick Cantlay's a really good short game guy, like good scrambler. He just hasn't been great in the last few tournaments, and that can be variance. That can be, sometimes that can throw you off or throw you off or on the scent of a certain player, and it really can be to your detriment when it comes to handicapping them. So I think it's good to kind of look at this rolling report. It's hard to like put this into a model necessarily, but it's good to uncover. Like maybe you come in here and like put a star by the names of guys that are really, really good long term and short term scramblers, like our boy Siwoo Kim here. I think that's important to do. You'll find some guys in here that like, might rank out really well in the last 24 rounds if that's what you're looking at. But then you go and look at their last 50 or 100 rounds, and you kind of see like long term what kind of player is this, and really they're actually a lot worse than what maybe their recent form would tell you. Now, does that necessarily mean that they've gotten that much better at around the green play? Probably not. Um, Likely not, but it could be. It could be. So, all right, that's around the green, and there's others in here too, like that I like to look at. Strokes gained off the tee is really going to matter. For the most part, guys that are good at this are going to be good at it in the long term and the short term. So you might not see as much, change in the color here. You're going to see a lot of like straight green or straight red, straight dumpster fire performances. But it is something to look at if a guy's trending one direction or another, if he's kind of lost his driver or whatever. Like I look at a guy like Cam Smith. Like Cam Smith, perennially bad off the tee, right? And he has been, and he is now. Like he's just not that great. Colin Morikawa has been a little worrying, right? Like lately, because for the most part, he's like super good off the tee, gain strokes off the tee, despite being not that long. But he's always very accurate. But his last few rounds haven't been great. Like, and so is that an outlier? Are those outlier rounds for Morikawa? Is he really struggling? Does he have equipment issues? Is he having was he stuck in between release patterns? I don't know. But it's something to just pay attention to. And a lot of times the rolling report I see is kind of very underutilized. So, all right, I want to show you some tools that I use from a website called Data Golf. Now, most of what I show you here is behind a paywall, but I do think Data Golf is a nice complement to a Fantasy National subscription. By the way, if you want a Fantasy National subscription, you can go to fantasynational.com/TJ and get 20% off any level membership there, weekly, monthly, or annual memberships. I mean, they have everything that I just showed you, but you can do lineup builders if you enter contests on DFS. They have ownership projections for DFS. They do simulations if you like running simulations. They have matchup tools, head-to-head matchup tools. Anything, all the data that they pull is ShotLink data pulled from and licensed by the PGA Tour. So we've been using Fantasy National for like 5 years now. They're great. You can save the 20% off, and you can give it a try this week, just weekly, maybe for just the US Open. And then if you love it, you can upgrade to the monthly or annual membership, and you still get to keep the 20% off discount. So definitely recommend Fantasy National. But a complement to that is Data Golf. So I want to show you some of the things that I think are worth a look on Data Golf. And I'm going to spend a good bit of time in here for the week, and I won't get too bogged down because I know this is hard to see. This is called their course table. Now, this is pulling every course played, including majors, on the PGA Tour since 2015, and it's got all kind of stats in here: scoring stats, strokes gained difficulty stats, driving off the tee stats, approach stats, uh, around the green difficulty, putting difficulty, even penalty difficulty. And you can sort it by any one of these columns. So what I've done is I've kind of highlighted some of the courses here in blue that I think are most going to play like what we'll see here at the Country Club. So I've got Winged Foot, Southern Hills, the Ocean Course at Kiowa, Torrey Pines last year. Now I do have Pebble Beach in here, but it's only because I want to show you how different it is in some cases. So those are some of the main courses I want to look at. I've got it sorted by scoring difficulty, average to par. The most difficult one we saw was Winged Foot, and then fourth on that list was Southern Hills just a few weeks ago, and then fifth was the Ocean Course at Kiowa last year. Sixth was Torrey Pines last year. Torrey Pebble Beach is here, so it's close up, the top of the list in terms of difficulty. But you'll see some other changes here in a minute. So if I want to look at this and go like, okay, well, what about driving distance? If I look at driving distance, and here are the top courses in terms of average driving distance on the PGA Tour since 2015, number one is Congaree. Number two is Torrey Pines South. In the top 10 is Southern Hills. Right here in kind of the top third is Ocean Course at Kiowa, averaging 293. These averaging right at 300 yards, over 300 yards. These courses are going to favor long hitters. They just are. If I look at driving distance the opposite way, Pebble Beach US Open, the shortest average driving distance of any course played on the PGA Tour since 2015 is Pebble Beach, the year of the US Open. So something to take note of here. Driving accuracy, the lowest in history since 2015 was Winged Foot. Second to that was last year at Torrey Pines, both sub 50%. I mentioned that. I think this is just an interesting tool to kind of say, where do these US Open courses, these PGA championship courses tend to fall in terms of some of these key stats I'm looking at. Like if I look at strokes gained approach difficulty, here we go again. The top one is Kiowa. Southern Hills right here in the top 7 or 8. Pebble Beach, from an approach standpoint, probably in the top 10 to 11 for that. Torrey Pine South, all in the top third to top half for sure in approach difficulty. Let's look at around the green. Let's see. Like, here's a greens in regulation percentage. Look at the greens in reg. Like, if this doesn't tell you that you're for sure going to miss greens at a U.S. Open or PGA Championship difficult setup, you are, because every one of these courses in the top seven, maybe. Let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six in the top six or seven. So you're going to miss greens. You got to be able to get up and down. Now, strokes gained around the green difficulty from the rough. You see Winged Foot, US Open course, US Open course, right? So you got two US Open courses in the top one, two, three, four, five, six in terms of strokes gained around the green difficulty from the rough. So it just kind of goes to show like what type of setup the USGA tends to go for when you look at that course stats table on Data Golf. All right, let me show you another tool on Data Golf that I like to look at, and this is a little more. These next two are more player specific. This is called the trending table. And this is cool for recent form if you just want to get a good look at recent form. But I also think it's a hidden gem for finding sleepers. Okay. So right now, and when you pull it up, it'll default and it'll pull up every player on tour right now. This is not just players in the US Open field. But it'll pull up every player on tour. And these are their last 5 events. The most recent is far right. Okay. And I'm recording this before the completion of the RBC Canadian Open. So some of these guys will have Memorial, Charles Schwab. So if you default here, it's going to show you their trend index or how many strokes better per round they've been compared to the average PGA Tour player. So Scotty Scheffler, way up there right now. These are the guys who are playing really well based on an average PGA Tour player in the top five. So if you want to look, if you want to evaluate recent form, and again, I think an important thing to do is to sometimes go to the bottom of these lists because it can really show you the hacks. But this is where I think this tool can really come in handy. The baseline index indicates how many strokes better per round a player has performed relative to their own baseline. So it's putting Scotty Scheffler's, recent performance relative to Scotty Scheffler's overall like average performance over the span of his career, like to who he is as a golfer. So what this can do is it can identify guys who are maybe long shots or guys who are sleepers or low owned or low priced or kind of scrub value or whatever, and show you these guys are actually playing really a lot better than their baseline has been. And they may be running hot right now. We may want to jump on them. So if you sort by that, you can kind of see how things change. Now, some of these guys are going to be, actually we can filter by tour. Let's do that. So the default filter is they're going to give you every tour imaginable. I mean, the Nordic Golf League, the Korn Ferry Tour, the Japan Tour, DP World Tour, Challenge Tour, Champions Tour. So let's just take all that out and just look at PGA Tour. And doesn't this make a lot of sense, right? The guy killing it over his baseline index, like killing it, is Davis Riley. And let me look at what he's doing. So, Charles Schwartzel, and you're like, damn, I didn't realize Charles Schwartzel was playing that good, but he is. So if he's like super cheap or, long top 40 odds or something like that, it's worth a look. Kurt Kitayama, an interesting name. JT Poston, Brendan Steele. So the names up top here, Brandon or Aaron Wise, a guy I really like this week. The names up top in this list can really help you uncover some values, I think. So I like using the trending table, not just to get an idea of form, but also kind of the baseline index form I like a lot. All right, one last tool I want to show you on Data Golf, and this one will be quick because this is really best used starting probably on Tuesday or so. It's the matchup betting tool. So once matchups drop for the US Open, which will probably be Monday or Tuesday, most of the time they hit on Tuesday. I like using this tool. I like using the book screen. So you go here to scratch tools and you can go to betting tools and you can go to three balls and matchups. And I like to use sort by book screen. And now the Canadian Open's going on right now. We're kind of in the middle of a round, so this is going to look different. But you can search these different books, and let's just say I'm interested in well, for the sake of this, I'm not going to have a lot of. I'm interested in Keith Mitchell, and I want to see where the line opened with Keith Mitchell and how it's how it's evolved with Keith Mitchell. And I'm looking at FanDuel right now, but I can click here and okay, DraftKings doesn't have any lines. Okay, PointsBet has him in a three ball. Bet365 has him in a three ball. BetMGM has him in a three ball. So let's just say I just want to look here, and I can go, oh, okay. So in the 72 hole match, he opened up as a pretty a decent favorite against the Gala, but he's actually been it's changed rapidly, right? Like he's gotten the margin has gotten wider. So maybe money's come in on the Mitchell side, right? And now the book's trying to entice dollars over here at Sahith. So I think the matchup tool is really helpful to help decide between players or help um, help you see where maybe some of the big money may be leaning. And so checking this on Tuesday, checking this on Wednesday is always a part of my process for sure. Okay, so I think I've given you most of the tools that really help me kind of shape where I want to go. Now, in terms of building, building models, right? We want to talk about models. Here are the key stats I think for a U.S. Open. Obviously, your main strokes gain categories: approach, off the tee, around the greens. That's going to matter. Driving distance at a U.S. Open matters. So even though I'm going to look at the strokes gain off the tee number, um, I also want to know the driving distance guys, and I may put it in the model, but maybe weight it a little less than strokes gained off the tee, obviously, but just so I can see it in the model. Because if you're gaining strokes, if you lead in driving distance, you likely have higher swing speed. You have higher swing speed. You're hitting shorter irons into a lot of these greens, or you can hit shorter irons into these greens. I want to know that. Recent form, we talked about that. Uh, and I also think long-term off the tee plus approach. That's that ball striking, that like long-term ball striking I was looking at. I think that's good to know. And then there's some of these things. Bogey avoidance is a good stat for major championships because you got to be able to make par and save par and get up and down. A lot of times, strokes gained around the green and bogey avoidance will have similar looks in terms of the names that pop and those that don't. But I like looking at both of those, even if I weigh it kind of down. If I don't weigh it that much, I still like to see it when I make the model on Fantasy National. And then there's things, right, that are a little tougher to quantify. Strokes gain hard majors, right? That's going back to that first screen I showed you on Fantasy National, talking about ball striking performance at major championships, tee to green performance at major championships, and then strokes gain home life. That's the the qualitative stuff that we learn, the stuff that gets tossed around in the nut hut, the stuff that we learn from caddies, the stuff that we learn from their coaches, the stuff they say in press conferences, whatever it may be. Typically, when things are going well at home or when the distractions are limited, these guys play better. This is what it is. I think the live golf stuff is gonna play a factor, not just from a travel standpoint if they're playing in England right now and then heading over to U.S. Open, but also just from in general the distraction of it all, right? And the nerve the media and the circus of it all is going to be a factor. And obviously, you want grinders. You want grinders. You want guys who can put up with crappy breaks, guys that can put up with hitting a good shot and not seeing it rewarded, but bounce back. You want guys like that. So level-headed guys, guys that can keep it together. I think that's all of that is important. So I want to show you the nut hut real quick. I'm gonna pull back the TJ curtain and show you a couple cool things about the nut hut. All right, I'm going to show you the nut hut. Pull back the TJ curtain here and show you a little bit about some of the value I think the nut hut really can provide, especially on a week like this. So let's pull it up. Now I've pulled you up to the Caddy info channel. If this looks really intimidating to you, it's probably because you've never used Discord. I get it. Discord can be complicated at times, but it's actually very simple once you get in there and learn it. But for example, this is our Caddy info channel, and every week we're going to drop major or stuff, sources, resources about the golf course, the official scorecards, caddy info that we received, and press clippings and transcripts that we have logged from the year previous and the years previous, so that you can look at that. Little stuff like this that just saves you time when it comes to the research. This is where I come in and I read through every press transcript and I screenshot the things that are that you need to know or you should know from a how are we playing kind of thing to how the golf course is set up. I put those in every week. So you have plenty of those every week to go through and read. It'll help with your research and understanding. Now, this is where some of the stuff that we get from the grounds, from caddies, coaches, etc. This is where some of that comes into play, and it's stuff that we keep only in the nut hut and we only distribute in the nut hut. What goes in the nut hut stays in the nut hut, and the sources remain anonymous. This is our fellow resident PGA Tour caddy of 10 plus years, John Radhouse. He's not caddying any longer, but he has a lot of experience around these golf courses. Caddy House comes in every single week and writes in his thoughts on how the golf course is set up, how it's going to play, and what he's hearing. That's the Caddy info channel. Now, there are a ton of channels over here on the left, right? So we've got a lot of fun channels down here if you like it. But I mean, we've got channels for everything. And this thing has over 700 members and growing right now. And people are chatting 24/7 from all over the world. So, horse racing, gaming. This is betting and DFS. If you're doing betting or DFS on any of these, Aussie something football, tennis, soccer, hockey, racing, college sports, NBA, UFC and boxing, Major League Baseball, NFL, everything you need, every sport possible. There's people chatting in here all the time. So it's a very active community. You can check it out. Then let's see, we've got weather that we talk about, updates there. We keep you posted on all the ins and outs, withdrawals, all that kind of stuff. And then links to all of our content, free articles, all gets dropped in here. But then this is some other interesting stuff. I mean, the Prize Picks chat is always hopping. We're making a ton of money on Prize Picks. Kyle Sinnett, he's our regular, he's our typical disc golf guru right there. We've got disc golf gurus, we've got NBA gurus, Major League Baseball Prize Picks gurus, and obviously we drop our own in here. Here's people winning a bunch of money right here, taking advantage of what Prize Picks gives us. All right, more stuff to show you here. So, like, this is the standard Nut Hut golf chat right here. So, all things Nut Hut golf chat get dropped. This is the main feed. We're always talking here. I don't want to get into too much of that. But the Nut Hut Hall of Fame, I mean, look at this. This is where we post people who have four-figure wins or greater and celebrate them. Here's David Speaks at the Honda, turned $150 into 21,000 after hitting the Sepp Straka bet. Holy crap! Here's boy Polar won like $9,000. Here's J Rod at the Masters winning 12,000. Our boy Kobe, $184,000 win at the Masters. Then followed it up with a $384,000 hit at the RBC Heritage. Here's people winning baseball stuff. Another main slate baseball victory. More baseball. Um, I mean, there's 20,000 there at the what was that? At the Byron Nelson. Charles Schwab showdown play, illegal formation turned 570 into 25 grand. Brandon Bybee turned it into 20 grand. I mean, so we're constantly doing, putting people in the Nut Hut Hall of Fame, and it is working. So I'm telling you guys, the Nut Hut is where it's at. And that's where, on Wednesday night, our late night chats, our Wednesday night chats before every tournament are going to go down. We'll be in there for the US Open talking it up. We've got a lot of sharp people in there. It is not just us, and we're not the sharpest in there. I promise you that. So I hope this gave you some insight into the U.S. Open, into the country club at Brookline, and a little bit more insight into my research process and some of the things I use to kind of get it started and get it going. This kind of stuff is what you need to do both before you kind of start building your model or your player pool, or if you're not a model guy, but it gives you a lot of context, a lot of color for the major championships, and resources like Fantasy National are the best. As I said, all the links to the resources I cited are in the description below. Like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Share the video with a friend or a family member and help spread the TJ gospel. Listen, let's have a great US Open week. We're in Scotland on a golf trip, having a great time. Good Lord, pray for us. Pat, overseas in a foreign country is always interesting. So this should be great. Check out the Instagram channel if you want more of that inside content from Scotland. We're having a great time, I promise. I just already know it. I already know we're having a great time. All right. May your screens be green and bend over your bookie. See ya.